welcome to Signal Drift, and I am Kevin Manthei, and I wrote a bunch of tracks using just the library, and I want to go through those today and showcase what I did and just a sneak peek into just a little bit of the patches I used and how I approached the library, what I did, all that kind of jazz. So let's get moving. So the first track here is called Let's Begin. It is the first track I actually wrote using Signal Drift. So let's check it out. All right, cool. So the track starts out with this bass Westworld sub that I was inspired by Drum Roll, the Westworld synth work that was done by the composer. And I created this patch using a Moog sub D bass synth and then captured it. So we got that going. And then we've got this cool pad called Spy Groove here. You can see it's a cluster of minor thirds. And then, sort of just to start the mood, right? And then we got a pulse that starts here, the Lyra 8 hallway horror bend. So let's listen to that. And I believe that's got some, sounds like it has some, yeah, just like a volume coming in. I think that's naturally part of it. And then we got a texture swell, and you can see here we have, what is this? Expression. So I put a filter on it. And a bend at the end, which is cool. So it gets us into this next section at measure 10. So at 10, so we have this event, the char guitar. Let's look at that. This is a series of just a bunch of interesting sounds, and then I created a little sequence with them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then the horror bend continues. The bass Westworld sub gets a little bit of reinforcement with this bass wall thumper. So a little bit thicker. We're building the piece, and then we get into measure 14 here. So that pad Spy Groove turns into the melody. And then we have these really cool Chroma Polaris synthesizer sci-fi sweeps that I created for a Transformers show that I was working on. I decided I loaded the patch twice. So what I did was, on there, it's the same pitch. It's just I separated them by just a quarter note. So kind of create that cool stereo effect. And then that builds into the next section. Okay, so here we've got this really big Bram menu that I created. So that's with the mod wheel down. The mod wheel's got filter on it, so check out how it sounds here. Okay, and then on top of that, we've got more char guitar. This one basically continues on. We also have, looks like pretty much everybody's kind of working a bit here. I know what we have. We have this lead, Dazed and Confused lead playing here along with the Bram, which is cool. Let's check those. Let's just check the first two notes out of those together. That's cool. Yeah, it's kind of like a little psycho, right? That then builds into this a bit of a softer section, and where we get to experience a little more of some of the retro synth sound. So I used a texture called Lurker along with Chroma Polaris keys. Chroma, I believe I renamed that Chroma 1 to a better naming patch. This was one of our earlier versions of the library. Okay, and then that on top of this is really cool. So this drone here is created with the Lyra. It's got this really cool major third motion in it. And that is a drone, but it sounds really cool up high as well. And then we continue with this texture static swell. And then another Lyra 8 whale song pitched menu. Check out this. All right, there's the whale. So let's listen to this section at measure 26. That's kind of a nice little fade out there. Okay, there you have it. That's Let's Begin. Okay, this next one's called Plucking Around. You'll see why. Let's play it through. Okay, there you have it. That is called Plucking Around. And it all just started with this really fun lead flute chirp delay. And I just did a long improvisation, and then I just kind of massaged it all into various sections so that it was kind of very much similar, but yet changing and evolving all at the same time. So it was kind of a fun way to explore the sounds. One note about this cue is everything that you're hearing is coming from the engine. I do have a fresh air and an Oxford inflator on it, but there's no extra reverbs and stuff. So all the effects are coming from the engine. Then we have a little pulse here to start us out. We have this one's really cool. That's a loop called feedback ping. All right, so yeah, it starts out pretty simple. And then on our B section, we start out with, we just add to our flute chirp with some bass in the chroma. Get a nice kind of 80s vibe going there. And then really going into the C section here. So all the heavy lifting here is just being done by literally 4 sounds. We've got the chirp delay, this really nice thick pad, clashing cloud, and then just these kind of fall-offs on the drone. Okay, so that brings us into D here. So there are some loops in the library. The Electribe, the Korg Electribe, and some loops that were created. These were created for Invader Zim back in the day. And then these, texture broken typewriter, just some panning, along with this lead Chroma 1. And then lead, let's see, this Gauntlet of Aliens. All with the lead chirp, the chirp delay patch. So let's listen to just this concoction of 4 patches doing this same line. That's pretty cool. All right, that gets us into 83 here. Okay, this micro lightning is cool. Reminds me of the Disneyland Light Parade, the classic one. We got some weird drones down here. So I used the drone, but as a pad. So a lot of drones sound good up high, a lot of pads sound good down low. So it's kind of just like a suggestion how we use that. Then we got, for some reason, we have a 2/4 bar. Kind of bringing it down here. So this was kind of interesting. It feels a little out, but I kind of liked it and I left it in. This is a pulse called the Chroma Plucker. And it sounds really good there. And then, but for some reason, when I would play it with this, Sometimes it gets a little, feels like it gets a little off, but it was like still not too off, and I liked it. So my favorite thing here then was this, again, we had the micro lightning up here and then a different effect setting on it here. Wanted to add more verb on it. Super classic synth, I love that. All right, let's hear it with just, let's hear it with the basses. Okay, and then we had this pulse. I don't know if we talked about this. This pulse is called the end. Yeah, it's really fun to just to layer pulses. Okay, that's plucking around. I think we plucked around long enough, and I think we can move on to the next cue, which is called slow burn. Okay, so this one is called slow burn. Let's check out what you can do with only 6 patches with signal drift. So I wanted to explore the Electribe synth kit here. That was a pretty inspiring kind of sound, and I was like, what, how do we build that? So just with these and that's put some delays on that. Let's check that out. So you can see I put the delay on here and a little bit of a convolution reverb. So that's just something I added right here. I had this one called Nightmare, which kind of gives it like this, that sheen, like almost like a pad is being put on top of it. So it kind of makes it a little bit musical too. Then we have this Ghost Cello modular menu. Let's listen to a few of those sounds. basically repeating between these four. Let's listen to those. And with our mod wheel, and I have a feeling that these have delay going on as well. Let's look at that once this is done playing. So although we do a lot of processing and cool things on our patches, it also feels very easy to go ahead and add to what we've done with the engine, turn something into a pulse, add some interesting convolution and delays. So yeah, what I did here was, let's listen to it without that. So then I turned down the delay. This pan over here, when you turn it all the way up, it goes left, right, left, right. And we had all the delay is time synced, tempo synced, so we have a much longer delay than normal, and then we have a convolution. Here's the convolution. You can hear it. Just enough to give it some vibe, but without it overtaking it too much. So that's just the very beginning of the piece. And then we've got a pad called Distant Ghost. Let's play that one. Let's see if we did anything on this one. This one we didn't do anything. This is how it comes out of the box. Some filter on it, and that brings us into this next part where the Electribe gets bigger. And then that brings us into this rising siren drone at measure 149 here. So this is like a, mod wheel down, filter low. And so many of the pads and textures are really long in this library, so it's really great to, if you can, hold down the key as long as you can, and it can really help evolve over a course of time. And we slowly build. We got this loop steady rock. Let's listen to that. Yeah, so this loop here is. And then we get some interesting kind of atonal synths on top. Yep, and then it kind of just hits a crescendo and then just kind of slowly fades out, which you kind of heard. So that is Slow Burn. Okay, the next piece is called Vault Break, and this one doesn't use too many patches as well. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I muted that one, so literally there's 6. So let's check it out. Okay, let's dissect this cool piece. I really like how that turned out. Okay, Vault Break started with this Vault Break. Wow, what a creative name I came up with for the name of the song. I just stole it from the patch name. So let's check this out. So this is it's a loop, and then I just kind of played it. You can see all the various notes of it. And then they just kind of play off of each other because of how I'm doing it. I love this patch. And then you can see, and it's also very responsive to the expression, which is, so all the way up is the full version. And then, but I found it really neat and sort of, oh, I'm sorry. This is also a mod effects patch. So mod wheel down with full expression up is this. And then mod FX up, you got basically a different patch. It's a much more plucky. Have a lot of fun with that. So this one I just had mod wheel down and I was just playing with filter. And then I'm pretty sure you see how it says loop vault break FX. So this version of this patch went in and also added delay and convolution to it just to give it some even more bounciness. Okay, so that is the antithesis and the backbone of this piece. And then we've got classic bass 80s pluck called the Chroma pluck. And then that goes, plucks along a bit, and then we come in with this loop woodpecker. Okay, so just so you know, also, anytime there's a loop, it says the beat per minute. These will work on any tempo sync that you have on your DAW. It's just that's the original tempo for the loop. So you can hear how that woodpecker loop fits in there really nicely. It just kind of helps build the section. And then we're going into 203 here. And then we got our lead coming in here when I used a bass, Quirky Anomaly bass. Let's listen to that. Okay, let's listen to how a Quirky Anomaly bass can be used for a lead. So we're up high. So yeah, it works out really nice up there. Add some quirky plucks here in the bass chroma. And then the drone rising siren, we had that in the last piece. Just droning away here, giving it vibes. Okay, and that's it for Vault Break, and now we can move on to our last piece. Okay, this one's called R3druM at the Outlook Hotel. Does anybody, does that ring a bell, so to speak? That is referencing The Shining. And as I was writing this piece, I just kind of felt like there was elements of that score, not that score per se, but it just kind of brought back memories of watching that movie. And I know that the original score had a lot of modular synthesis and a lot of old school massive walls of synthesizer modular synthesizers and those kind of things. So I wanted to just kind of explore that a little bit, but with a modern twist. So we have about 13 to 14 sounds here that make this up. And I really wanted to also explore textures and sequences and loops on this one, as well as the events. So all the orange ones are textures, blue is loops, light blue, oh, that's a texture, that should be, let's fix that right now. There's another texture. So textures are orange, and then we got sequences that are purple, keys that are pink, and then events that are green. So let's check it out. Okay, so we started with this Textures Ice Pick, a really cool, creepy build. Reminds me of Jack being frozen to death in The Shining. It has that processed yet modular kind of sound. And then there are the Lyra 8 sound nuggets below it. And then we start pretty much right away, just a lot of textures. We've got this Haunted Swarm and this Lo and Behold. Let's listen to those two. So what I really loved, what really started this piece was this, this was taken from a flute sample and then put through modular effects. And this piece, this sound evolves. So what happens is we bring it back later so that the Haunted Swarm, you can see down here, I bring back this exact same motif so that this top texture can keep going and building. But I loved that little initial thing so much that I brought it back. You can see I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's basically sort of the theme of this. We had a subtle texture here. Let's listen to this crackling percussion. Yeah, it's kind of subtle, but it's just kind of giving it some, that one's less subtle. And then we start a loop. So I wanted this piece to kind of get big and small, and it does that. It kind of gets, just has these explosions. The first explosion was right here. with this big loop glitch in the breakfast simulation. Whoever came up with that was a good name. Okay, let's listen to these two together. And also just to mention too, on this piece, I actually have a Valhalla Shimmer plugin on the entire thing, including the drones, including the percussion, because I wanted to just have this really washy kind of verb that went over the entire piece and gave it this sort of mood. So that was so how I mentioned some of the other ones didn't have any external processing. This one I chose to put a verb on the entire thing. I use these Lyra 8 sound nuggets to get us in and out of sections and to give this moody, angular, angry kind of vibe. And then the next thing here is these keys. So this was totally sequenced. It almost kind of sounds like a modular sequence, but oh, actually. So that was put on top of this, which is a Polaris power sequence that I created by cutting up and manipulating a bunch of Chroma Polaris sounds. So you got that plus the keys machine hum that I sequenced in, and I think it's kind of a cool combo. Okay, and then all hell breaks loose on top. I also had fun with this section right here. So what I did was played with some panning here. You can see the panning. Goes to the left, back to the right, back to the left, and then on top of that there was this interesting sounds in here that So yeah, that building up, let's listen to that. Kind of comes down a little bit. Okay, what is doing that? Oh, it's this Arco Anomaly. These are really cool. Okay, so check this out. So that was the one that I was showing you before with the panning, and then it goes into this mellow section. But then I manipulated some of the kind of sequence to the loops, so to speak. So check out this section on top. So then you got that mellow loop with those on top. But you know what, so that's pretty cool. But then I wanted to show you what I was doing. This is what I was trying to find. It's this. But it's so sharp and so white noisy. So what I did was I put in a filter here. You can see, so playing around with the filter, kind of bringing it in and out, in and out. So check this out. So just kind of playing with the loop in real time with filters and stuff, and just kind of making it my own. That's really the fun thing about, you know, sample libraries. And a good sample library gives you great ideas, but then you're still able to sculpt it and manipulate it to the way that you want it to sound. We have that Arco Anomaly, really mellow loop that just kind of keeps going and going. And then we just kind of bring in this moody stuff. We got this super subtle Moog Helly Hell. It's a good name. We kind of end big with it. And again, that one sounds great because check out the mod wheel and how it brings us in. So there you have it. We had 5 pieces. Let's begin. Plucking Around, Slow Burn, Vault Break, and R3druM at the Outlook Hotel. So that's Signal Drift, a little version of just what I explored writing these quick pieces over the past 2 weeks. But what's amazing about the library is that I feel like I just scratched the surface of what's in there, and so many sounds that I've created over the years. And then I had collaborators work on taking our organic source material from our various libraries, putting them through modular systems. We have this whole section from Arco Anomaly that Renee Bosco did that just sounds absolutely amazing, and so many great loops and sequences and textures and events and effects, pads, drones, everything basically. And this library has really seen the span of years, because I have things in here from all the way back from Invader Zim, sounds that I did for StarCraft Ghost, sounds that I did more recently for Transformers Robots in Disguise. There's some sounds that I used and created with my Chroma Polaris for the Nancy Drew video game series that I scored. And I'm forgetting, and then Tron Evolution, the video game from Disney. There's some cool loops and textures and whatnot from that. So besides all of that, and then working with Renee, and then working with Jake Weston, and getting this unique thing of working with synthesizers, but then also working with modulars. But then the modular material isn't just full on, let's tweak knobs and make sounds with our modulars. It's like, let's put organic textures from our libraries through the modular and see what happens. So I think it's a unique sound, and it's very modern. It's very cinematic. It's experimental, but it's not too experimental. It's like you can wrap your hands around it and you can get some really cool ideas out of it, get some signature sounds, and make music that sounds like you, but is inspired by the sounds and the sound sets and the patches that we've created. So go make some cool music, and thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and stick around because we're always making new stuff. See you later.